Hey guys, welcome to the ULF podcast. Today and for the next few days, I will be outlining a set of videos that show my favorite podcasts to listen to. And today, I will start with at number five, World Soccer Talk. I must admit, I there's a conflict of interest here. I still write for World Soccer Talk. I've been on their podcast before, and but I will try to be as unbiased as I can. I, of course, have some opinions on the recent change up at World Soccer Talk, and I'll get to that in a minute. But let me start by saying it's now hosted by Nick Webster, who we know from his time at Fox Soccer Channel. Back then, I think it was called Fox Sports World or something like that. So he's someone that us in the soccer community have known, recognized for a while. It was hosted earlier by my friend and collaborator Lawrence McKenna, who I respect greatly. I think one of the problems the podcast has had is the loss of Lawrence McKenna and two other pundits in Morgan Green and Kristen Hanage. I think Lawrence was a fantastic host, while Nick is also a very good host and obviously very knowledgeable and clearly has a level of recognition that Lawrence did not. I think Lawrence's style was a little more amenable to me, personally. I think Nick is a little more abrasive. I think it's surprising when he calls the opinions of his own pundits crap, even though he might be joking around. But it's definitely jarring for a podcast listener to hear. Sometimes the production value wasn't great earlier on, but I think that's something they've got a lot better with now, as far as tracks not being lined up and stuff. And however, I have to say that had I recorded this video 6 months ago, World Soccer Talk would probably be at number 2 instead of number 5. And I think some of that decline is because the podcast is finding its feet. Under Nick, they've only been recording for about 2-3 months now, since the start of the Premier League, however long that was ago, mid-August, I guess. So it will continue to improve, I'm sure, and especially with Karthik Krishna there, who's undoubtedly the most underrated and probably the best American soccer pundit there is. And I mean American-born soccer pundit. He's very, very knowledgeable, and even though he's a Manchester City fan, which I'm not a big supporter or a big fan of, obviously, his opinions are for the most part, very unbiased. He's able to engage the listener, and he has a almost encyclopedic memory of soccer events dating back over a decade and more. So with him there, it's always a podcast to listen to. I think the new edition of Nate Abalera has been good as well. So the podcast is right now in its nascent stages, the new podcast. But it is definitely one that I recommend to everybody. It's one of the cool things about the podcast is that they record on a Sunday night, which ensures that their opinions are actually fairly unadulterated. They don't listen. For example, my podcast, I get to listen to a couple of podcasts before I record, whereas the guys at World Soccer Talk really record reactions based on the games themselves. They don't read other stuff, and so there's definitely an organic, very truthful feel to it. So yeah, at number 5, and definitely a podcast I recommend.